here's Chris Maher, host of FFM93 Live.
All right, what is up, everybody? This is the first episode of FFM93 Live, the call-in radio show that I am doing. And before we get into any of the hockey talk or anything like that, I just wanted to kind of explain a couple things for the show and kind of how everything is going to go. So basically, the one thing that I was trying to add to my channel throughout this year, and obviously the Flyers season didn't go so well. There was a lot of different things that I wanted to try to expand on. I had a lot of stuff in the works, and I wasn't really getting anywhere on certain things that I loved, or maybe it just wasn't working out. And then I thought of maybe doing another podcast, another show, but making it where instead of always having that interaction of through text or just like talking, or what I mean, just like anything like that, have it where it's a call in, and instead of having it through like direct message or comments on YouTube, things like that. And when I did that, I was thinking do a call in show. So I do the call in show, and I love doing this stuff. And I think the one reason I wanted to do this is because it's different. I personally haven't seen any Flyers type of Flyer Central type of call-in show, and obviously there are different things with this as well. So just a couple things before I get into the hockey talk. Like I said, I just wanted to explain a couple details, because there are some things as well that might seem a little bit different. This does get streamed to my Facebook, YouTube, obviously, and then my Twitter. And you are able to comment as well. You can put the comment on the live stream. I'll pull them up if you want to call in. There's things like that too. And then, the calls itself are going to be voicemail for now, before I can figure out everything with getting a live legit call. I wanted to make sure that I was at least able to play messages and be able to get that. So as of right now, it is voicemail. So if somebody were to call right now, and I believe I actually did just get a call, but if somebody were to call right now, I wouldn't be able to answer it. But again, those are just a couple things that I wanted to mention before we get into everything today. So obviously, the hockey talk, there's still a lot of things to be decided with this Flyers team, and there are a lot of different questions. What's going to happen? Obviously, the number one thing is, as it's June 10th right now, Friday at 1 o'clock, the Flyers do not have a head coach. And there have been many different things that have come up on the Flyers coaching search. And I did get a couple calls about that as well. But just to kind of start out, in the most recent update, it seems, per Frank Saravalli, there's been a lot of different coaching updates. He had a whole tweet yesterday basically saying the Blackhawks, they had permission to interview Canadians, Luke Richardson, the Canucks, Brad Shaw, Derek King was still a strong candidate. David Quinn was interviewing with the Red Wings and the Flyers. The Flyers interviewed Jeff Blashill, and then he also said that he believes that Bruce Cassidy is also on their list. Also added, the Flyers haven't reached second round of their hiring process yet, but when they do, expectation is John Tortorella will be part of it. Now, if you remember, a handful of days ago, John Buccigross put out a tweet of a picture, and it literally was John Tortorella on one side and the mascot Gritty on the other side. And when he did that, everybody's kind of thinking, okay, is Tortorella going to be hired as head coach? So there's so many different things. And then when I checked today, I look at the tweet from 9:16 this morning. He puts a GIF on top of it, or a GIF, whatever you want to call it. And it's basically just right there. And, he's just basically tapping the watch, basically saying anytime now that it seems like Tortorella is going to be hired as head coach. So, look, I think there's a lot of different things that could be happening. It seems like right now. There's many different things that can be going on with this Flyers and the coaching search, because again, you have so many different candidates, and obviously there's a lot of teams. And this right here from Amadeo. Trotz has been interviewed 3 times, 2 Zooms, 1 in person. Torts really wants the job. Cassidy's been interviewed. Yeah. So there are a lot of different things that we've heard, and a lot of different things from, who goes where, who can kind of get hired, all of that stuff. Right. And if I'm the Flyers, I'm looking at everybody, because I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, Blashill is there, but why would they go for Blashill? He was coaching in Detroit, and it was more of a kind of a rebuild kind of thing, right? And when you look at David Quinn, for example, right, the Rangers were kind of rebuilding. They kind of had some pieces, but they weren't close to where they are right now in the Eastern Conference Finals, down a game, as they lost Game 5 last night. And don't worry, we will talk about the playoffs too. But again, I think the Flyers are going to interview everyone, because, right, there's so many different candidates. The Flyers are kind of, if you go back to exit interviews, Chuck Fletcher kind of mentions that they want to kind of build a team that's win now, but also build for the future, similar to going into the 2019-20 season. Obviously, that didn't work out, so they're obviously going to be taking a second swing at that. But right now, if I had look, I mean, it's basically changing every day for me. I wanted Jim Montgomery. My buddy Travis Ballinghoff, the host of, not the host, the producer of Nasty Knuckles, tweeted out today that he can confirm that the Flyers have not interviewed Jim Montgomery and they're no longer interested. And that is something as well. So look, there's so many different things here, and we don't necessarily really know, who is going to be that main guy and who gets to that second round. I feel like it's going to be Tortorella, and I think the Buccigross thing, you can kind of, I really think that stuff is believable, because a couple reasons. Buccigross works with Tortorella for ESPN, and they do that show The Point together. And also, it's not like, it's not like the Flyers. I think the one thing with this too is it's not like they're going to rush with this. They're going to take as much time as possible. And I think there's a lot of different things that can kind of go around with this. And again, if it were to be Tortorella, and I personally do think it will be, if it's not, like, I wouldn't mind Bruce Cassidy. And that whole thing is very strange to me, how that ended. Because I remember I was talking with Bill Meltzer a couple weeks back, and he, kind of talking about Tortorella and all that stuff. And Atkinson obviously wanted him, right, at exit day, talked about it. And then you get the whole thing, like, basically, of the whole Cassidy thing, saying that Cassidy was safe, right, he's safe at exit interviews, and then 2 weeks later Sweeney went to his house and said no, that he was fired. I don't know, that to me is very strange. Cassidy said he wants to come back, he wants to be able to be able to coach again. So obviously we're going to have to see how that goes. There are a lot of different things on here as well, for just in general of who goes where and all that stuff. But I'm just curious to see when the Flyers do it, right? Because as of right now, we're about 5 weeks away from the draft. The draft is July 7th and 8th. And I would assume the Flyers have a coach before the draft. I don't know what's going to happen there. If it's more of a, if it's a closer process, like if you remember the last time, and again, like I've mentioned this before in one of my videos, like there's a lot of different things on how the Flyers kind of hired AV. And it was, 12 days after the season ended, pretty much. So, basically, if they were to take, a longer approach, and I'm perfectly fine with that, because it's more time and they want to get the right guy. And I think when they want to get the right guy, I'm perfectly fine with it. Take as much time as you need, because everybody knows that this team is going to need a lot of different things. Joel Fermi, what's up, man? How are you? Fletcher scares me. Some of the things that I see too kind of scare me as well. Paul, what's up, man? Again, I think there's a lot of different things here as well. Just on just where the Flyers go. I mean, if we're going to sit here and look, I know somebody just commented as well, Robert, looking forward to a healthy Allison and Ellis. Like, that is the number one thing for this Flyers team going in next season. If this team can get healthy, right, that is the number one thing that they need to do, is get healthy. And if you look at just the way the roster is constructed, okay, and you have a lot of different players here that are either were banged up, because the Flyers had a lot of injuries last year, right? Hayes, Atkinson was banged up towards the end of the year. Farabee for a little bit during the season. Lawton had a concussion. Patrick Brown as well. Frost was pretty healthy throughout the year. And obviously Nate Thompson came back from surgery. Like, there were so many different things. Obviously defenseman, you have Verstalainen, who was injured for a little bit, York as well. So look, they need to get healthy going into next year. There are, Coots, right? And it's funny, and it's funny. I even forget, because there was literally no one that the Flyers had, and there were so many injuries that you literally just forgot. But again, look, I think if the Flyers are able to get healthy next year, if we were to look just at the draft, right, because that is one of the next topics here, the draft. If we're going to look at players that I genuinely do think that the Flyers could take in this draft, I look at this as kind of similar to 2017. You have there were many different moving parts. There wasn't necessarily anything that year that was more, I guess you could say, it was very similar, because you didn't really know who was going number one. If you look at this year, it's similar that way. I think a lot of people still have right. And I also do think there are people as well that, either have him going one, or maybe Slavkovsky, maybe Logan Cooley, maybe you have one of the defensemen. I'm not necessarily too sure, where everything is going to land. Obviously, we will figure that out in July. But I think right now, I would like to say that Shane Wright goes one. I'm not 100% sure if, somebody's going to attempt to move up. There's been talk of Vancouver, because they asked Slavkovsky if he could play center. And I'm thinking to myself, that would be insane if they were to move all the way up and do that. I don't know if they will. But again, I think there's a lot of moving parts. Like if I'm the Flyers, right, and I've talked about this before, like, you don't have any defenseman outside of maybe Wiley. Like, I just looked at Cap Friendly, but I'm going to take a look at it again. If you're going to look at just defensemen, right, you have Adam Ginning, Cooper Zek, Wyatt Wiley, Mason Millman, Igor Zamula, Linus Hochberg, Adam Glendening, and Brennan Manel, right? That's your defense right there. And if you're going to take a look at this and you want to look at just defensemen in general, right? There's so many guys that are you really don't know what they're going to be right now. If you're looking at Ginning, probably Robert Hagg 2.0. Wyatt Wiley, I'm not necessarily sure can play up in the NHL. I don't think so. Zamula probably, I think, could. Hochberg, I thought, played well. I don't even know if they'll sign Glendening and Menel, and Hochberg is an RFA. So you don't really know what's going to happen here. I think there's a lot of different moving parts. I know people are everybody's going to think who they want. I kind of want Jiricek. That's just me, though. I think he has a little bit of Verstalainen in him, and I mean that with being a little bit over aggressive, but he is 18, and I think a lot of that could go away. Amadeo, that's a good point. You do have Andre, but exactly, and he also was injured. So that is another thing too. I mean, a lot of these other younger guys are injured. Yes, you do have Ronnie Attard. I was just going off of the defense for Lehigh Valley as well, because Attard is on the Flyers roster. I was just going off of the Lehigh Valley roster there. Joel Faramim says Slavkovsky or Slavkovsky, okay, or whatever his name. That's funny. I honestly thought Ronnie Attard had a pretty good showing for in the overall part of the year. I do agree here with Paul. Pretty high on the tarting art. Samson does look nice. He looks like one of the better picks. And that is one of the other things I do want to talk about drafting, because I did get a comment I did get a call about scouting, and obviously you guys will hear it as well. But, I think a lot of the thing with last year, right, was, certain guys coming up, and I don't necessarily think anybody was like expecting them to do anything crazy. I think it was just more of, you have a roster here, and obviously everything has kind of gone wrong but with this team, and everybody kind of expected these kids to come in and kind of play well. I thought Attard, I thought he played well for the most part. There were some games he looked pretty iffy. There were some games he was okay. I think overall, I thought he had a pretty decent showing. He's definitely probably going to be in the AHL next year. I don't see him being with the Flyers. I do think the Phantoms will be a better team. I wish they would have signed McLennan. That is another thing as well. You have McLennan not signing, and I think a lot of that. And obviously, I didn't do the video on that as well. And I think that's one thing I do want to talk about here as well. McLennan, right, not signing him, okay? And again, if you're looking just at, Flyers draft history, I'm going to take a look here. Just at their Flyers, just the legit recent picks in recent years. So the last 3 years since Fletcher has been here, I'm going to go from 2019 to 2020 and then 2021. 2019 first round takes Cam York. Second round, Bobby Brink. Third round, Ronnie Attard. Fourth round, Mason Millman. Sixth round, 2 picks, Igor Zerduk, Roddy Ross, and the 7th round pick that year was Bryce Budzinski. So outside of those guys, you have York playing in the NHL, Brink, Attard. Millman still hasn't got his crack. Zerduk is in the KHL. The Flyers don't have the rights of Roddy Ross anymore, and Bryce Budzinski is probably going to be at camp. I would assume he probably would get in the LC at some point. 2020 of Forster, first round pick, Emil Andre in round 2. You have Zadie Wisdom in round 3, Elliot Dunoyer in round 5, and then McLennan in round 6. That looks like one of the better drafts for Fletcher. I genuinely don't think the Flyers drafting is a problem. I think it's more of the player development and being able to develop these guys into legit players. But the whole thing with McLennan was skating. Right. And he wanted to sign. It's not like McLennan didn't want to sign here. He wanted to play in the Flyers organization. And you have a guy, right, that wants to play for you, and you don't sign him because of skating. He's 19 years old. He's about to be 20. That stuff could change, though. Like that's my thing. Like skating and all that stuff, like that can change. I feel like he would have been able to develop that. It would have added another, scorer, and he would have added another scorer. He just put up 40 goals in the WHL. And this guy was a sixth round pick, and obviously that COVID year when everything was kind of crazy with the draft, right? So look, I felt like overall, I would have signed McLennan. And again, if you're looking at 2021, you have Tuomala, who again they really messed up his development this year. It's basically a waste. Kolosov, you have Zanetti, Ty Murchison, Ethan Sampson, and O. McLaughlin. Outside of a handful of these guys, there aren't necessarily many of them here that you legitimately can say like who. I look at I kind of look at the recent drafting and all that stuff as, not signing McLennan and not having these guys is like, I would have rather taken a shot on him instead of, wasting the spot on Ginning, for example. Like, again, if we're looking at contracts and all of that stuff, it's not like the Flyers didn't have room. You have 32 of 50 contracts are filled, and your injured reserve list is perfectly, or excuse me, you're not your injured reserve, your reserve list is fine. So it's not like you couldn't have went out and got somebody. And again, and just take a look here. We got the chat bumping. We got 20 people in here. This is awesome. Again, I really do appreciate all the support. And we will be getting into the call soon. But again, I think a lot of the stuff, if we're going back to player development, like kind of like I was just talking about, this is a great point here from Rob. Player development dead on Frost, 100%. And if we're seriously, if we're talking about a guy that has played honestly really well with everything that he's kind of been dealt in Frost, like bingo, because Frost is a prime example of it. I 100% agree. I think a lot of guys could also agree with this, but I think Lindblom is definitely another one. They have absolutely no idea how to play Oscar Lindblom. And it just makes me laugh. Like, Lindblom at the end of exit interviews said, like, he played more, right? He was still playing fourth line, but it's just that line, the legit fourth line was out there more. And if you look at player development, and if you look at the way that the Flyers have kind of handled Frost, it's been, well, we want him to be a center, but when he messes up at center, let's just kind of, it to me, it just makes no sense. It's like they want him to be a center, and when they want him to be a center, it's like if he has a bad game, to me, it feels like him on the pole with them, and kind of the way that they view him goes down. Then when he has a good game, it goes back up. That's kind of how I see it. It's like they have no kind of balance with the way that they view Frost. And if I'm being honest, like, I just don't understand it, because he's a guy basically where right now he's coming off of pretty tough injury. He had to get shoulder surgery. He had to go out to Colorado. He gets that done. And he gets injured in the fourth game of last season. And that was already when they didn't have Couturier. And, they actually ended up losing Phil Myers that game too. They had two injuries. And those were two guys that were playing a lot of minutes at the time. So they were a little bit injured. And when you look at just the way that Frost played, right, he basically is pretty much right where you would want him to be. Again, if you're going, again, I'm just going to take a look at Morgan Frost and his stats. If obviously you can't take everything in the stats, but if you look at the way that he played this past year, 55 games played, 5 goals, 11 assists, 16 points. Obviously not many guys were plus this year. Only Sanheim was one of the guys that really stood out. But Frost ends the year playing really well on that line with Cates and Tippett. Had a lot of confidence. I thought he was fantastic. He is one of the guys that they really don't necessarily know how to play, and it's a shame, because I think if you look at just Lindblom too, I mean, Lindblom is a guy that, again, like I said, plays fourth line, and if you're looking at guys that could be expendable, I think Lindblom is one of them, because if you look at just the way that overall, the way that Lindblom has been, it's like, how long are you going to wait for a guy like this to kind of keep up? And I think another thing too, it's like you need to move money, and he has a movable contract, so there's that as well. But look, just looking at some comments here, Matthew Savoy, I really like Savoy as well. He definitely is one of the guys that I think would be perfect. I think there are a lot of different players. If they were to draft them, I think I'd be okay with it. I don't think they will, if I'm being honest with you. I think they're going to take one of the defensemen if they're available. But if they did take Savoy, I wouldn't be upset. I would just give him more time, because he's smaller, and I know the league. There is that whole thing with being smaller, right, and all that stuff. But again, I do think there's a handful of guys that you could take in this draft. Like Joakim Kemmel's another one, a shooter. He's got a lot of different good qualities. But overall, I really do like Savoy. I think he is one of them guys that's, again, playing with McLennan, it would have been nice. That's why I kind of wanted them to sign McLennan as well, because you would have been able to kind of keep that connection together. And again, I think there's a lot of good things. Just an overall with how the way that they have, that the draft has kind of been labeled. I think the Flyers have a good pick. It's not like the Flyers don't have a good pick or anything like that. I just think there's a lot of good things that kind of going in the Flyers' favor with this draft, because it seems like either one of these defensemen are going to kind of creep out, or you're going to get one of these kind of scoring young players. Obviously, Cutter Gauthier is another one. Like there's so many different players here. This comment here comes from Rob. What happened to TK? Used to shoot all the time. Now I think he's afraid and makes terrible passes. Honestly, I know a lot of people kind of crap on Konechny. I think there's a lot of different things with him, outside of the game. Like, one thing I think that the Flyers did a really good job of this year was kind of keeping everything as like a close-knit group. Like, it's not like the team is, outside. It's not like they don't like each other. It's not like everybody is like kind of, how should I say it? Like, it's not like there's any like bad blood between anyone or anything like that. Like, they are a close-knit group. And I think Konechny kind of helps that. Outside of his game, I think he was really snake bitten for majority of the year. He was either missing the net, or if he was missing the net, it was kind of, he was close to score. And when he was getting those chances, he wasn't necessarily burying them. He was every once in a while. And a couple games there, he did start to heat up a little bit when the Flyers did have a couple of wins. And I love this point here from Mr. Twister, because 100% agree. If the Flyers can get him a shooting coach, and I talked about this with Russ Cohen as well, if they get him a shooting coach, he will be fine. And I think at some point last year, Russ was telling me that he was like 255th in like goals for, goals against, that whole like kind of advanced stat thing. I might be wrong on that. Please don't quote me on it. But again, I do think that was one thing that, again, like, if he were to do that, and if he gets that coach, again, if we're just talking about the power play in general, like, the power play alone could be so much better if you have guys, a legit threat on it, a shooting threat. And again, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think there's a lot of different things. Like, I know Amadeo here just kind of brought up playoffs. He said, I think they'll make a trade to get in the second round this year as well. Amadeo, are you talking about the Flyers, or were you having a conversation here? Because I don't see anything else. If you're talking about the Flyers, like, I don't know if the Flyers are going to make the playoffs. I have to kind of sit here and think of, first of all, I think I have to actually look at what the roster is going to be. I'd have to probably wait until training camp and watch a couple preseason games to genuinely. Oh, okay. He was talking about the draft. But again, going off playoffs, I genuinely do think, if they were to try to make the playoffs, that is one thing. I'd have to actually sit here and look at the way that they kind of mold the roster first. But I don't want to make like I don't agree with you. I do agree. I do think the Flyers will try to get a second round pick. I think there's a lot of talent there that they could kind of go at. And I know there was that tweet a while back, and I can't remember when it was, but there was a tweet that came out that basically saying that the Flyers weren't going to be taking any Russian players, and kind of same thing with Montreal. And they denied that. So did Montreal, because it was both teams that were in the tweet. And it actually was from the same website that reported the Ivan Fedotov signing in Philly. So there's that as well. But again, I don't think that's the case. I do think the Flyers will at least attempt to try to get into the second round of the draft, because again, not having that pick, it kind of hurts. And again, I think there can be some talent, because again, you don't know at this draft, so there can be some talent that slips. And when you get talent that slips, you might be able to get a first round talent in maybe the second round, maybe you get a second round in the third, all of that stuff, right? So I think there's a lot of different things here. And again, and I love this comment here from Mr. Twitster as well. Here it is right here. Tippett always seems to be in the right spot. I 100% agree with that. I thought he was in the right spot a lot of the time. But let's take a break, and I will be right back. All right, so we are interrupting the show for a minute to talk about SeatGeek. SeatGeek, as you know, has sponsored me for actually a while now. Great service to get tickets. Now, again, if you're wondering, if you want to try to get some save some money, if you're curious on what tickets are around, who's coming to Philly, if it's a concert or a baseball game, even when the Flyers come back to play, SeatGeek is a great way to get tickets and to save yourself some money. They have provided me with a code that can get you $20 off your first purchase of $50 or more on tickets. You can either do this through the website, if you were to just look it up through a internet browser, whether it's Google, anything like that, or on the app. You can add it to the app, and it'll take $20 off the first order, $50 or more. The code is Flyers Fan Mania in all capital letters that you see on the screen here. And again, SeatGeek is really easy to use. I've used it myself when buying tickets. Again, and this is even before they were sponsoring the show. I've used it myself. They're great. They have everything listed. It's very easy to use. You go on, you search, just like you see on the screen here. You search, you look through, you go on the seating chart. And on that seating chart, they rate these deals from 0 to 10. That's what all those dots are. And the green are great deals. The yellow, they're good. Red, not so much. Probably you're paying more money. So you want to stay in the green, right? So if you can find a good deal, use that green dot to kind of navigate. They have so many different things that you can check if you need wheelchair accessibility, or if you want seats on the glass if it's a hockey game, or if you want to sit in the pit at a concert, whatever. There's so many different things. There's so many things that you can check on the app and things like that. But again, SeatGeek is sponsoring the channel and the podcast now. And again, they are awesome. And make sure you go check them out. And you can save yourself some money on some tickets when the Flyers come back around in October. All right, so we are back now. Just wanted to mention SeatGeek there. SeatGeek is a great sponsor of the show. And again, they have been sponsoring me for a long time. Please use SeatGeek. You can get money off. And again, it's very easy to use. But again, enough talk with the ads. Let's get into some playoff hockey. Obviously, right, the playoffs, there's been so many different things these playoffs, right? And I haven't talked about the playoffs at all. So I'm ready to dive into it. From game one, when this all started, right? The game one, the first night of the playoffs, you have a 3 overtime game, Pittsburgh and the Rangers. Penguins win. That series was great. Go 7 games. You have Colorado sweeping Nashville, just being absolutely dominant. You have Connor Ingram coming in, playing his head off. There were so many different things from the playoffs. The second round, you have the Oilers, right, beating Calgary in 5. Who would have seen that, right? You get the Coleman no goal. There were so many different things in the playoffs, and there was a lot of good things that came out of it. And I think I honestly think these playoffs have probably been the best playoffs, I'd say, since as crazy as it sounds, I thought the bubble was good hockey. The Avs are so fun to watch. I 100% agree, man. They are unbelievable. There's so many different things there with them. Just on how they play, the skating. They have such a good energy about them. Oh my God, their home games are absolutely bananas. Like when you watch that crowd and you see how loud they get, it's insane to me. And the best part is like that could be Philly, like that could be here, but it's unfortunate. And right now you have the series with the Rangers and Tampa. Rangers won the first 2 games. That was that's been a really good series, and the Rangers haven't played as well since game 2. Obviously, that they've lost 3 in a row, but they have played well. Amadeo, that's a great point. Onager against Calgary. He was fantastic that series. Like that guy was absolutely insane. Like that was incredible. Belmar Maroon, gritty playoff players wishing. It's funny because I really liked Belmar. He was one of the guys that I enjoyed a lot. Um, Conn Smythe pick, oof. If the Oilers were still in it, and if they ended up winning the series and they were in, I think I would have had to go McDavid. And I know I talked about that with Jim Mike Gavine from High and Wide before, and kind of how, can the Conn Smythe be a trophy that can be given to somebody that isn't in the final, but not, and I just can't see that. Yes, the Avs are the one that have the Mario mushroom noise. I love it too. I think it's awesome. I think there is another team that has, I think it might be St. Louis. I'm not sure. Really miss a rocking Philly crowd. 100% agree. Again, going back to the Conn Smythe pick, I think there's a lot of different players that could get it. I don't know. If the Rangers get there, probably Vasilevsky, maybe Zibanejad if he keeps it up. If it's Tampa Bay, I don't know. Man, it's so tough because a lot of them guys are playing well. I think maybe Vasilevsky again. Like I 100% could see him winning. I 100% agree, Amadeo. If the Avs win, it's Makar, 100%. Unless McKinnon or Rantanen is absolutely insane. And it's funny, like Makar, like I could see Taze kind of being like that McDonough pick a couple years ago. Because everybody was like, oh, it's either Hedman or Vasilevsky, or everybody was kind of like, wait a second, like McDonough's played really well too. So look, I think there's a lot of different guys. Flyers discussion says the same. My choice is Makar. And that guy is so fun to watch. And, I know I'm going to get crap for this, but the Rangers are such a fun team to watch. Like, I know Colorado is, and I know that, Tampa and all of that stuff. And I know this is a Flyers central show, and I understand that. I know I'm a Flyers fan and that whole thing, right? But man, the Rangers are fun to watch. Like, I'm sorry, they are a good team that has a good crowd. There's a lot of good things that they do on the ice, and I don't know what it is, man. But like, I love watching Fox. That kid can play. Zibanejad. I always liked Zibanejad, even when he was on Ottawa. And that trade is crazy to me too. How they got that off for Brassard and a pick. Oh my gosh. It's incredible. And, and it's funny you said, Amadeo, the only thing that concerns me with the Avs is their goaltending. I agree. I just think the defense in front of them, I think it's too good to even be that concerned. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Colorado is still that good. And again, last night, game 5, and I didn't catch much of it. I had work. I saw most of it, most of the end of the game, last handful of minutes. Like, you had the Rangers, man. They had like 3, 4, 5 chances. Lindgren had that chance at the side of the net. They had a handful of plays in front. Rooney had a play where he just shot it right in his glove. And again, like, if that's any other player but Rooney, might score there. Like, you have so many different areas of that. And Tampa gets that goal late off the seeing eye shot from the point that goes through 300 legs, sticks, arms, bodies, hands, fingers, and finds twine. It's just incredible. And they get the goal, and then Hagel with the empty netter, and it's 3-1. And that building was quiet. And the video of the guy who got punched in the face, that was a joke. That was an absolute joke. I was in it, not a similar situation to that. There wasn't any physical violence, but I had a rough time when I went to Pitt to watch the Flyers game. I know my dad would 100% agree. And Amadeo, I've told you this story before because we ended up doing a show that night. And I was absolutely heated on the phone, but it's all funny now, and and everything like that. But the Avs do look unstoppable. I 100% agree. Rob, that's a great point. Rangers seem to come from nowhere. How did they do it? Why can't we? That's kind of my thing with the Flyers, right? Is why can't they? Why can't they do it? You know what I mean? Like, and I know it's such a, everybody's like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, well, they've been doing this for so long. And look, I understand it. The Flyers have been putrid for how long now? The Avs do look unstoppable. 100% agree. I think there's a lot of different things there, but look, I think the Rangers have played well. There's obviously the last couple of games, they haven't necessarily played great. Game 3 was the game they could not have let go. And I read a tweet last night and I was like, I was thinking the exact same thing. Game 3, when they let game 3 go, it's like they let them right back in the series. And I love Tortorella's comment. He was like that they basically, started a monster with Tampa Bay after they swept them in 2019 with Columbus. Ryan, I 100% agree, man. I hate the Rangers, but I respect them, and I'm jealous how they built their team. Well, and look, it's easier to do this when you have Artemi Panarin and pick your team, and then you have Adam Fox, right? And you kind of get that, and then you kind of did the rest with trade. You kept Kreider, you drafted Shesterkin, like you did all of this stuff, and you got better. Like the Ryan Lindgren trade has worked out so well for them for Rick Nash. That was the trade that sent Rick Nash to Boston. I believe that was 2018. Like a lot of these things have worked out for them. And again, look, you just have to get hot at the right time. And that shows you the playoffs. And I think the Rangers have kind of done that. That's been the team this year. Obviously, Tampa. Everybody had Colorado. Colorado is just insane to me. And I think the one thing with them too, with the Avs, is I am just amazed at how they move the puck up the ice. Like, and it's not even just because honestly, the Makar-Taves pair is probably the best defensive pairing all season, 100%. I think if you're looking for the Flyers and you want to try to build a team that's compared to these teams, I think you have to try to do a couple of these things. But let's get into a couple calls here. Let's see how this is going to go. And again, I think, I did get a lot of calls. I even got a couple as we were going live. But again, if I don't get to your call, if you did call in, if I don't get to it today, I will get to it next week. And if I don't even get to it next week, I'll get to it the following week. I will answer all the calls. I do want to say that. So let's start out here.
Hey, Chris, John from Newtown. I would like you to address the ongoing coaching dilemma that the Flyers find themselves in. Specifically, every day that goes by that we don't have Torts or Trotz is a major concern, in my opinion. And I'm wondering who they're waiting for. And do you suspect that there's someone still in the playoffs that they're hoping becomes free at some point? Personally, I hope and think that Tortorella is the answer. But if you can shed any light on the ongoing coaching search, because no information has been out there, that would really be terrific for the fans. Thanks.
All right. So, John, again, thank you for calling in, the first caller for FFM93 Live. And again, John, one of my old hockey coaches. But Coach, look, I talked about it before. Tortorella, it seems like it's there. I don't know. It looks like he's going to be getting around 2 of the interview process. Bruce Cassidy, obviously being fired by the Boston Bruins, looks like that is part of the thing as well. Jeff Blashill was interviewed. David Quinn. Doesn't look like the Flyers are in on Jim Montgomery anymore. Bill Meltzer also said that the Flyers will be talking with Trotz 3 times already, two times on a Zoom and 1 in person. Obviously mentioned that before, but again, that is kind of where the Flyers are at right now. And I 100% agree. Like they are, look, every day that goes by is a day closer to the NHL draft. And I do think the Flyers will have a coach quicker to the draft, quicker up until that point. But again, let's take the next caller.
Hey, Chris, this is Steve. Just a quick question for you. Would it be better for the Flyers to go after a guy named like Cassidy, who just left the Bruins, who is a steady, good coach that took them to the playoffs 6 straight seasons? Or do you go after a guy like Trotz, who's got a good track record as well, but he's been jumping around from here to there? Just seeing what you think. All right. Take care. Good luck.
All right. Yeah. So look, I think Cassidy, I personally, like, to me, the whole thing with Tortorella is this. It's like Tortorella has had a pretty long tenure at most places. If you were to look up John Tortorella and his coaching tenure right now, and I'm going to do that as I'm typing this at the moment. But if you were to look at just his coaching tenure, it's pretty long. I mean, it's not like it's not like Tortorella has been bounced around that much. And again, I don't want to make it like I'm harping on your opinion. But he was with the Rangers for one season in 99 2000. Then he went to Tampa Bay and he was there from 2000 all the way up until 2006-7 season, or excuse me, the 2007-8 season. She's there for about 7-8 years. The Rangers, he's there for one, again, that 1 year, and then he's there for another following 5. He's in Vancouver for a tough season. They pretty much finished 500 that year, and then he was in Columbus from 2015-16 up until 2020-21 last season. So Tortorella has been with these guys for a long time, and he's been with these teams for a while. As for Cassidy, I mean, he got to the playoffs every year with Boston. He's a great coach. I'd have to take Cassidy over Tortorella, but I wouldn't be upset if either or were the coach. I mean, the Flyers have a lot of good options here. You have, again, Cassidy, Tortorella. You're still in the mix for Trotz, it seems. So we'll see. But again, I think that's a great question, kind of comparing the two. But let's get into the next caller here.
Yeah, maybe you could talk about the Flyers scouting department, such as like why is it so bad year after year? Why? Who was in the department, and how long have they been there? And if they have been there a long time, why are they still there? And what kind of changes can be made to improve the scouting department, since their draft over the last 10 or so years has been pretty dismal. Thanks. It's Steve-O.
Thank you, Steve-O, for the question. Yeah, so look, the scouting department, I actually don't think the scouting department is an issue. I know and I know that might sound crazy, but when you sit there and you look at just the way, again, like the Flyers have drafted in the last handful of years, the Flyers have a lot of good picks here. In recent years before that, obviously you take Farabee in 2018, and then you passed on Keandre Miller, who looks absolutely fantastic in the Rangers uniform right now, and you take Jay O'Brien. That is absolutely nothing against O'Brien. It's just unfortunate. Obviously, Patrick didn't work out. 2016 draft, basically the only thing you got out of that was Carter Hart. Look, and a handful of those other players, Hogberg, Glaginski, Bunneman is in Florida, Torinsky is not here anymore, Allison's injured, LeBurge, no, Rupsov, all of these other guys, like that was a total miss on the draft outside of Carter Hart. 15, you have Provorov, Konechny. So look, you have some good players here. You have these guys that are good players at the time. I think the problem is player development. And if you're looking at just, the Flyers they're trying to add to their scouting program. I mean, recently in May, they added Sammy Kapanen and Kyle Shiro, a former player and Fred Shiro's grandson. So it's not like the Flyers aren't trying to add these guys. But again, I do think there are a handful of other issues outside of the scouting, but I would agree. And it's funny, just the way that Steve kind of called in, why are they so bad? And it's funny because it's just kind of the way he said it, but it's not, I can agree with him because it's unfortunate and it's frustrating because you have all these players and you get all of these guys, and you try to get these players, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work. But let's take the next caller here.
Yo, what's up, Chris? It's Paul. I just wanted to say, I feel like there's so many people that are already on the Johnny Hockey train. I mean, obviously, there's a really good chance he does come here, but let's just assume he doesn't. Who do you think who do you think's the top guy we target if it's not Johnny Hockey?
What's up, Paul? Thank you, man, for the call. If there was one guy outside of Johnny Gaudreau, I would have to probably say maybe Forsberg. I don't think that would work, though. As for Kevin Fiala, I think would be perfect if you were to offer sheet Fiala, because the Wild have absolutely no cap space, and it is unfortunate with everything that has kind of gone on with them. Basically how they ended their playoff run. Fiala would be one, and the connection with Minnesota. Fletcher did not draft him. He was drafted by the Nashville Predators and was traded to Minnesota. But Kadri, that's a good point, Robert. That it could be another guy. We'll see, maybe. But Paul, I think if there is one guy, it definitely would be Kevin Fiala. That would be my pick. But let's get into the next caller.
Hey, Chris, but we don't black. Just want to congratulate you on creating your live TV show. That's awesome for you, bud. My question for you is, what can the team do to be better in front of heart to heart, figuring out all their defensive schemes? I feel like if they get that settled, find some good offensive pieces, this team can be a playoff push. What are your thoughts? Again, Chris, congratulations, bud.
Thank you, Josh. I really do appreciate you calling in. It's always good to hear from you, man. I think one thing that they need to do just to get better in front of Hart, right? Look, they are a team that is attempting to find a new identity. And when you're trying to find a new identity, you're attempting to not just play better in front of your goaltender, but also you want to be able to do it smoothly. And I think there are some coaches out there that could help in that area, and obviously get the Flyers to have a better structure, because that is one thing that was really lacking, and especially the past 2 seasons, not having enough structure. And when you don't have that, and you don't have that kind of, that structure and that kind of that play on your team, it's easy to kind of get jumbled in your own zone and be stuck, or be watching, a certain player over and over again, or puck watching, or all of that stuff. Like, how many defensive breakdowns did the Flyers have in these past 2 seasons? So look, if I'm them, and if I look at just the way that they have pretty much, kind of not necessarily molded their defense, I think one thing that they need to do is obviously get a coach that can mold to the roster that they have now. And I think the other thing is at least try to get some more of these players in here and have a better defensive system, have some more defensive, and I wouldn't necessarily say more defensive style players, but just have a better awareness of where guys are. I mean, the amount of goals that we've seen these past 2 years of guys basically looking at just right at the puck, being absolutely nowhere near it or anything. So look, I think if they want to attempt to get better, and just attempt for right now, just again to just get better in your own zone. I think the number one thing is just trying to play the right system and being able to use that and get that to turn into offense. But let's take the next caller here.
Hey, Chris, this is Lou here. Watching the Eastern Conference Finals have been a joy. I've been really, really enjoying it. It's like watching great art, like a Picasso. The problem I have is the Flyers are so far behind the elite in the East. Their art is more like a kindergartner. So realistically, how long do you honestly think it's going to be before the Flyers are even competitive again? It seems awfully bleak to me. Can't wait to hear your answer. Thanks.
All right, so that was from Lulu. Thank you for calling in. I do appreciate it. Well, the joke on Twitter from one of my good friends, Anthony DeGrazio, is that they are 2 to 3 years away from being 2 to 3 years away. And that is essentially how I could kind of look at it as well. They are I don't want to say that they're a long way, because again, all you have to do is get hot at the right time at the same time. So it's like if you were to also be hot, but also have the right system and the right players, like kind of how 2019-20 was, like that's all you got to do. I don't necessarily think that they are that far off, but they are a while off. If I were to say a year's, say, like, I think all of it depends on if they're competitive next year or not, and if they're not rebuilding. Just obviously stay healthy, Robert. That's a good point. Howard Frank, great question. I 100% agree with that. I thought that was a great question. And I think it's the reality is people want to know, how long is it going to be until this team's competitive again? I think right now I would have to say probably 2 to 3 years. And I know that that's what we've heard for a while, but that's just kind of how I see it. I mean, I don't see them being anything better next year. I don't think they make the playoffs. And that's kind of outside of just regardless of kind of where they are. I think they are missing a lot of different things unless they address them in the offseason. But right now, I just can't see them making the playoffs. But let's take the next caller here. Travis, one of my good buddies.
Yo, Chris, it's Travie Ballin. Just wanted to congratulate you on the new show. Keep doing good things, brother. I'm just curious, if you had your choice of anybody who's out there, if you were Chuck Fletcher, who would be your go-to coach? Is it Torts? Is it Trotz? Is it Cassidy? Looking here. All right, thanks, brother.
Travis, one of my good buddies, had the scoop earlier on Jim Montgomery as well. But again, look, if I'm the Flyers, I'm going John Tortorella. I think that's the guy. He's at a good tenure. I think there's a lot of good things that Torts can kind of bring. I think he's like a couple of the guys want him. But we are getting closer and closer here towards the end of the show, and I'm getting calls left and right at the same time. I'm sure you can hear the phone buzz, and I do apologize for that. But let's take one or two more callers here. And again, I just wanted to say, for people that are calling in now, I will get to your messages next week. That will be for episode 2 as well, if I do not get to them today. But let's take one or two more callers here, starting off with one of my good friends, Jamie Bascow.
Hey, Chris, how you doing? This is Jamie, also known as Bellucci. Just want to say I'm very proud of you. You've done a great job. Look at you. You have your own radio show, man. Dude, this is some great stuff. Proud of you. But the question I have is, what do you make of some Flyers fans, or who knows if they're even Flyers fans? Some of them anyway. About suggesting to trade Carter Hart. It's taken years and years and years for the Flyers to finally find a netminder or quality netminders, him and what's presumed as Fedotov. I mean, but why are some fans saying, okay, now is the right time to move Carter Hart? What is your take? What are your feelings on that? And again, congratulations on the job well done with your radio show. Bye-bye.
Jamie, thank you so much for the kind words. I really do appreciate it, as always. Look, I made a video on this a while back. I think the whole thing with Hart is unfortunate, because he's the one guy that I honestly, this past season was fantastic, and I thought he played really well. I think there was a lot of different things that Hart did. And it wasn't even just his goaltending, still getting calls left and right. Again, I thought Hart was great. And, I think overall he's been the goaltender that they need. I mean, he was one of the biggest reasons that they got to round 2 against the New York Islanders, almost getting into, the Eastern Conference Finals of the bubble. I think trading him would be a mistake. If you're looking at a team that needs goaltender. Obviously, Edmonton, Robert just mentioned, like Draisaitl. I don't see it. I think you're going to hurt yourself more because you're going to take out your best goaltender. You're going to add a scorer. It's obviously going to help in an area. You're going to get a 100-point player, help out the power play, all that stuff. But you're adding a huge hole and you're putting a lot of stuff on Fedotov then. But we are getting close to the end of episode 1 of FFM93 Live, the call-in show Fridays 1 o'clock, 1 to 2 o'clock here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. You can call in 267-939-1216, and I will get your message next week. Again, thank you guys so much for today. Really do appreciate all the support as always, all of the answers. And again, I will be getting to these calls next week. Again, thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you all again soon.